Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we are looking at the A9 Vigilance Interceptor. So, this is a short range starfighter used by the Galactic Empire and the Dark Empire that began production in about 9 ABY. This is a single cockpit controlled, made. Okay, let me try that again. The cockpit controlled simple cockpit controls made the A9 an easy starfighter to learn. While faster than the TIE Interceptor, it had weaker hull due to deliberate design choices that was made to reduce the mass. Thanks to independent power generators, however, the weapon systems were quite powerful for the ship of its size. The A9 was armed with two laser cannons mounted in the structure on the ventral side of the fuselage. One was slightly more powerful than the other. They were fire linked and aimed forward in their standard configuration, but several modifications existed which allowed for the gun to pivot 90 degrees down to perform strafing runs, as well as allowing the cannons to be independently targeted. These cannons were more powerful than those found on the T 65 X Wing starfighter. Now, for the history of it, this was designed by Kuat Drive Yards, famous for its Imperial class Star Destroyers. The A9 was an attempt to enter the very profitable Imperial starfighter market. Though KDY was a major manufacturer of fighters of the Galactic Republic during the Clone Wars, the Imperial market was largely dominated by Senior fleet systems making the TIEs series. The A9 was intended to fulfill the Imperial Starfighter Corps' desperate need for a faster, more maneuverable fighter to deal with the New Republic A-Wing Interceptor. Um, realized almost 6 years after the Battle of Endor, shortly after the defeat of Grand Admiral Thrawn, the vessel the Empire received did not fully meet the requirements that they were hoping for. True to Imperial fashion, the craft had no shields or hyperdrive, requiring the craft to operate from a fixed base or starship. Like TIE series fighter craft, the A9s were generally deployed in large numbers to compensate for their shortcomings and replaced as required. After Norvell II rebelled against the Governor Adam Tev, the successful removal of its government, the New Republic gained access to new A9 interceptors. This proved to be a boon for the belligerent New Republic military after the fall of Coruscant, as the A9, along with the new E-wing fighter, helped to even the odds when Emperor Palpatine's forces attacked the ocean world of Dak. While it was never widely adapted because of its technical shortfalls, the A9 continued to show up in Imperial remnant fleets as well as New Republic/Galactic Alliance squadrons years after its introduction. It was more rumored, or it was often rumored, sorry, that KDY was in the process of developing the A10 interceptor, which would address the problems with the A9. In the Second Galactic Civil War, a number of them were in the Corellian Defense Force. So, going behind the scenes, the starfighter, very similar to the A9, were seen in a captured Imperial hangar in the Ventral 4 in X Wing Rogue Squadron Issue 22, but their class was never stated. They may be nearly prototypes of the A9 or similar looking predecessor. The A6 interceptors were mentioned in Jedi Quest, the School of Fear, but very little information was ever provided aside from the fact that they had turbo laser cannons and used astromech droids. It was a predecessor to the A9 interceptor. So in appearances, we do have X-wing Rogue Squadron 22, Dark Empire 3, which was their first appearance, Dark Empire 6, Empire's End 1 and 2. We have New Jedi Order. We have Recovery, Star by Star, Enemy Lines 1, Enemy Lines 2, Unifying Force, and then Betrayal and Legacy of the Force. Um, Dark Empire Sourcebook had this, so that is really from the D20 version, because they're the ones that had the license for the role playing game at the time. So this comes out later on after Weston Games had lost their license and had since gone under. We also have the Essential Guide to the Star Wars Universe, Second Edition, revised and expanded. Essential Guide to Vehicles and Vessels, Jedi Academy Source Book, um, the Star Wars Encyclopedia, and that. There are some other ones listed here, but I'm not going to go through the full list. It is an interesting little starfighter. Again, it doesn't have all the extra bells and whistles I think most people really hope for in um, starfighters, especially having the shields and that to really make them a little bit um, more resilient. So this is looking at it in the New Republic version of it, um, in the New Republic era. Of course, it is a starfighter. We have a length of 7.4 meters, so these are slightly longer than what the TIE fighters are, not by much, but they are a little bit longer. Um, we have a crew of one, cargo capacity of about 55 kilograms, 1 day's worth of consumables, and these are fairly cheap. A little bit more expensive though than I believe the TIE fighters were, but when you're also talking about a ship that's a little bit faster, and I don't really remember the cost of the TIE Interceptor, so that's the key thing to keep in mind. I believe a standard TIE fighter, and I mean a standard TIE IN, I think was going for about 60 to 80,000 credits. Um, just going off the top of my head. I don't remember what the TIE Interceptor was going off of, so that's a different ballpark. Maneuverability is 4D plus 1, so very maneuverable. Has a space of 12, so actually I think that's. I want to say I think that is a little bit faster. Maybe it is the same speed as the A Wing would have been at that time frame. Maybe it's a little bit faster. I'm drawing a blank on it at the moment. So, in an atmosphere, we're going 1,300 kilometers an hour. Has a hull of 2D plus 2, so it is a little bit more beefed up than what the TIE Interceptor was, or the TIE IN was, um, almost to a 3D. So, it is worth noting there. Um, our sensor packet, being a small little fighter here, passively we can scan out to 1 kilometer. Actively, we can scan out to 3.5 kilometers. We can do a search at 6 kilometers, and our focus is 300 meters. And we have the two heavy turbo laser cannons. Of course, forward facing, whether you want to say it can tilt up and down or however your version of this may be, because they do note that there were later versions that had that tilt. Has a fire control of 2D, and it has a damage of 5D or 6D when they are fire linked. Um, an interesting little ship, um, whether you go for it or not. Now, I never really read any of the books that these were in, so drawing from my own opinion of them, I remember seeing them many times in the book that I grabbed this out of. Now I always put it into words that way. Sometimes we have two ships or part of two ships on one page or whatever. I put it in this format, so hopefully everybody just sees the stats for this ship. Um, but I do always remember seeing this and thinking that it was just like a cheap answer to having like A Wings or some of the other fighters, mainly because um, when you're trying to outfit a new military, and when you look at the TIE fighters in the same regard, how do you get the biggest bang for your buck is really what I'm kind of looking at it as. So, yes, TIE fighters typically don't have shields and that, but really they became more of a police vessel than they were really an outward uh, combat vessel, because the Galactic War had ended. They needed to police areas. Yeah, you were kind of running into pirates and smugglers and the like, but most of the time they were something to really show the might of the military and the fact that the empire is there to help keep you safe. Although a lot of people would say that it was really the empire they need to be kept safe from, but it is just how we perceive things. So um, the empires look at it as their might is to show how safe they can keep you, but most people I think were feeling downtrodden upon, and they really felt they needed to be kept safe from the empire. Not saying that there weren't some of those lucky individuals that had a nice living under the empire, because however they conducted their lives, or the planets they were on, maybe they didn't get down or beat down on a daily basis. I don't know. Those are things that when you get to Coruscant, and if you're in an upper echelon, does it really matter who's in charge as long as you're still living well, compared to in the undercity, who's being beat on more, being tasked to pay more taxes, or are they knocking over your business and taking things? We saw that illustration in um, some of the first episodes of Rebels, where the off some of the imperial officers were hungry, so they were literally kind of kicking over a stand and then fleecing the guy for some extra tax money, and then taking some of, I believe it was Jurgen fruit, uh, because they were hungry. Uh, Sometimes the corruption runs really wild and deep, and then other times you might be in a different sector where maybe you had a commander that's not getting moved up, but he is a little bit nicer. Um, you know, this was just said here recently in a conversation with somebody else. It is a big universe. Okay, so maybe you're in a or part of the galaxy that maybe the Empire wasn't so bad, where most of what we saw was the guys that were really ready to kick down your door to get some extra money out of you for whatever. So, it's just how things kind of work out. Not saying it's fair, not saying I'm siding with one side or the other, because typically, I mean, I like to think that the Rebel Alliance was trying to get back to what um, the old Republic was like. So, um, but there again, even with people like that, if your house was destroyed in a fight with the Empire, you might have a sour view of what the Rebel Alliance is like. So, um, always trying to keep all that stuff in perspective. So, but that's the ship we have here today. Glad to have you here. Hope you're enjoying the series as always. It's another wonderful ship to be able to bring to the forefront for most of the people that really don't get to see this, and it's something I enjoy to do. We'll see you in the next video.